Om Sarvopanishad Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandana Parthavatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Maha. All the Upanishads are likened to a cow. The cowherd boy is Krishna. The calf is Arjuna. People of purified intellects are the drinkers of the milk, and the milk is the supreme nectar of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 16. We had seen the previous couple of verses where the Lord teaches us that the wheel is set in motion. Here he clarifies what our life should be in this world of interconnectedness. O Partha, that is, O Arjuna, one who does not follow here the wheel thus set in motion is of a sinful nature, because the person derives pleasure from the senses. That person or such a person lives in vain. Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati hayaha aghayurindriya ramo mogam parthas jivati. This now makes it very clear what is a life worth living and what is the life lived correctly according to the dictates of this universe. So, yaha iha, that is the person here who does not follow, no anuvartayati, who does not follow. Follow what? The wheel, the chakram, set in motion. Yeah, okay. Oh. So, we have a kind of a directive given. One who does not follow the wheel set in motion. Who sets the wheel in motion? The Supreme Lord. And what is the wheel? The wheel of the world. As we have seen from the preceding two verses, that world is shown to be interconnected. That is, from this imperishable arise the Vedas, from the Vedas arise the karma, from the karma, the sacrifices, you can say, the factors that go into making things propitious for human beings. And it is spelled off as kind of rain. From rain comes food, from food, human beings. The whole cycle of what goes on in individual and collective life. If everything has started from one point, it's obvious that there is a connection between everything. There is a unity. Later on in the 18th chapter, he will say, Avibhaktam chabhuteshu vibhaktam eva chastitam. So here he says that reality is undivided among amidst the apparently divisive nature of this universe that we see. There is unity. Swami Vivekananda says, unity in variety is the plan of creation. I remember a long time back when I was very young, I had seen a huge picture of Swami Vivekananda. And below that was this teaching, unity in variety is the plan of creation. And it struck me so forcefully. This is what the whole thing is. There is unity. But we have not understood the underlying structures of unity. We are floating on the surface, as it were, seeing diversity. If there is diversity, diversity cannot exist forever without the unity. If everything was separate, everything would die off very quickly. If everything is united, everything stays. And this whole universe is showing that yes, it is living, it's a palpable, it's a expanding, spreading, diversifying, that reality. So this same principle is being spoken of here. One who does not follow the wheel of the world machine, it's very clear, set in motion by the Supreme Lord. What happens? That person lives a life of sin. Aghayu indriya ramo. Agha is sin, ayu is life, a sinful life. And he kind of fine-tunes it. What's that sinful life? It's a life in the senses, a sensory life. That you are on the basic animal level still of existence. Indriya Ramo is one who delights only in the senses. Human beings have got higher and higher elements within them. Why can't we live on those levels? No, the sensate life. And the two great occupations of human beings, yes, eating, and shopping. Shopping for more and eating. Eating and shopping. Going to a shop to eat. And we go to eat where? In the shop. Yeah, there. So it's a life, it's a very kind of immature, very kind of fragile life. Because if you don't get what you want on the sensate level, on the sensory level, you become sad. And this is the nature of the world. You will not get everything from the sensory level. You want many things, but the senses are limited and horribly limited. You can't just go on eating, you'll fall sick. You'll get tired, you'll throw up. Imagine. You can. Yeah. So the senses are limited. The senses are fatigued quickly. And to live in that kind of environment of the sensory world means you have been kind of drawn out of yourself and pulled out and are being hammered. Because all of us, we think, yes, we are some great people. But to others, we are objects. And it's meant to be exploited. It's meant to be used. And you use that thing and then you discard it when you don't want it. And that's why these things like loneliness and all the other problems begins. Nobody wants me, nobody loves me, nobody needs me. You are an object to others. You're an object to the gods, you're an object to the animals, you're an object to everything. So what happens is when you are drawn out, you objectify your existence, and then you become an object to others. The whole world crushes you now. Why? It's just an object, dispensable, but at the same time you feel, no, I'm so important. Well, you've stepped out of line. What's that line? Well, that line is be in conformity with the whole of nature. This world is so interconnected, like Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Holy Mother also used to say, you pull one end of the water crest and the whole thing comes out. You hold one atom in this universe and pull it, if you can really do that. Keep on pulling it, you'll pull the whole universe towards you. Yeah. I mean, a thought experiment. You pull one atom out of this, and you'll pull the whole universe along with it. So you take one life and pull it, you pull the whole universe of life towards you. That's what the teaching is insisting. Don't be selfish. Just don't think about your own pleasure. And pleasure is what? The lowest form of pleasure on the sensory level. There is something called an intellectual pleasure or an intellectual hunger, a moral hunger, a psychological hunger. All these are a spiritual hunger. Why can't we satisfy that hunger on those levels? And the more you go inside, inward looking, the more you'll feel your connections with everything. Our bodies are made of the same materials that everything else is made of. Obviously. The mind is made of the same material that all minds are made of. Oh, yes. You cannot have a mind separate, and this person cannot have a mind as separate. All minds are interconnected. That's why we can communicate. That's why we can feel others. And morally, yes, we are all bound. In the sense that we are one. How do you be moral? When you interact with others, you display love and compassion and give them hope and faith and joy. That is what it is. You don't injure anyone in thought, word and deed. So morality is not a kind of a closed system. It's a very dynamic system. And in this dynamic systems, we are playing our parts. If we think we are separate, there we go. We sink down to the lowest level. See, when you do something which goes against the grain of things, people kind of avoid you. They will smile at you in the sense of, yeah, try to kind of, this guy, he's a kind of black sheep or whatever, black sheep or white sheep or whatever, but that sheep has strayed from the fold. So that person is met with disapproval, that person is met with rebuff. What happens is it's a kind of an evolutionary instinct. We need to clump together. And because we have learned to live and work together, we have survived. This is the whole thing. And now it's not only the community or society or nation, humanity. We are connected to humanity. And now humanity is connected to what? Is humanity floating in the clouds somewhere? No, humanity is connected intimately to the world, to the environment. Everything that happens out there happens in here. Whatever happens in here happens out there. There is such a kind of bonding between an individual and the collective. Remember, collective means everything, all life, sensate or non-sensate, conscious or non-conscious. We are that life. Now, in case we seek our own pleasure, what happens? The second line says, we live a life of sin. Sometimes the Lord gives some very strong kind of, you can say, words to wake us up. Vedanta does not recognize sin. It only recognizes error, as Swami Vivekananda says, a mistake. There is no sin. So what's the mistake? What's the error? That we think we are separate from everyone else. That's the biggest error, the biggest mistake. And because of that mistake, we constantly suffer. This is a life of trials and rebuffs and isolation and loneliness and non-love, everything, whatever. So such a life, he's saying, that person lives in vain. It's very clear that this is the kind of a life that is vain. It has got no uses at all for others. So this whole wheel has been set in motion. Huge wheel. People always think, oh, there's no one for me. What do you mean, no one for you? Why is all this loneliness? Why is all this sadness in human life? Technically, there should not be. The moment you have stepped out of line, you feel lonely. Once you understand that you are connected, every single moment of your life, you're connected to the whole. Why? So why do you think that you are lonely, you're isolated, you're unsatisfied? And this loneliness, this lack of love and empathy has created so much of problems, so much of abuse, so much of needless, you can say, trouble. Why should we ever think that we are living in a bubble? So, break the bubble. Feel that everything is, in a way, yourself multiplied. And when you see yourself multiplied everywhere, there is no question of trying to keep yourself separate. But what about my life? People assert their individuality. Yeah, it's a good thing. You develop your individuality. But the development of individuality will lead you to connect with others. Your individual cannot develop on his or her own steam, bereft or without others. Your name, your language, your religion, your culture, everything is kind of absorbed from outside. When you work, you develop yourself. The very fact of developing your individuality, your identity, is actually taking a step towards the collective. You cannot understand individuality without everyone else, collective. So yes, you can, if you look at it, what about my individual? Develop it powerfully, be loving, be compassionate, be holy, be spiritual. And whatever you do, they're saying this is the world of work. When we work, we don't work in a kind of a prison cell. In the prison, what happens is you just exist quietly without doing any work. What work can you do in a isolated cell? No. See, what happens is existential kind of existence. Oh, that person exists. But that person's existence has got no value at all. That person, the moment he gets an opportunity, he'll look out of the window. He or she will look out of the window and try to interact, try to talk. What I'm trying to get is you can develop your individuality only in the midst of the world. Everything goes to contribute to that individuality. And that is what has been spoken of here. There is, Swami Vivekananda gives another illustration. Suppose all the doors and windows of this hall, including the air conditioning, has stopped. This air inside this hall will become poisonous after a while. You can't live here in that. You'll breathe poisonous air and you will slowly choke and die in that. Now suppose somebody comes and opens the door. So what happens is you take a deep breath. This is what is life. Open the doors and open the windows of your life and breathe in. So there was a young man who had come to Swami Vivekananda saying he is not progressing in spiritual life, in doing meditation. So Swami Vivekananda said, what do you do? Say, I close my doors and windows, shut the light off and I meditate. I close my eyes and shut and meditate. I say, oh my child, open the doors and windows, open your eyes and see the world around. Look at the misery of people. Go out and help them. Do that first. Then shutting everything and trying to close and say. We have not, you can say, formed an idea of our own entity correctly as interconnected with everything else. So here the Lord says, the person who does not follow here the wheel thus set in motion. Yes, at the beginning of this creation, projection, the wheel is set in motion and it's revolving. People come in and people go out. People come in and people go out. The wheel is not going to stop for you and me. Oh, I'm such a great fellow. The wheel is not going to stop for you. Really, I've seen bigger ones. So this wheel keeps on turning and turning and turning and turning. This is universal life. So whenever we harm something outside of ourselves, we are harming ourselves. Yes, that karma will come out again. So when you work, you work with others, the results come from outside. You harm something outside, it's going to come here. You say something to somebody harshly, after a couple of days you'll find somebody else telling you something harshly. Well, you got the results of what you did. You shouldn't be now upset about it. Good that you kind of nullified what you have done. Now don't do that again. So this world will give you what you give it to the world. The wheel will give you what you are contributing. That is why I'm saying the person who does not follow the wheel, the set in motion, lives a sinful life. Because the person derives pleasure from the senses. So it is asking us to kind of raise ourselves now on higher levels of our existence. And once we can do that, we slowly understand how we are connected with everything. Now, the next verse, the 17th verse, so long the Lord has shown people who are eligible for work. Who's eligible for work? The moment you say you are eligible to work, it implies that you have not realized the self. You have not realized the truth or the reality. And you're going through these processes of purification till the veils of ignorance become thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. So here we have the whole chapter beginning with, you need to work. And why do you need to work? Because you have not yet attained the highest. Now, to show the other side, those who attain the highest, what happens? It's not only those individuals or those people who attain the highest, do they have to work and live in this world machine? They, in a way, have transcended the world machine, the wheel of the world. And it's not only showing a class of people who have transcended, because the goal of life is not to be in the wheel all over and over and over again. It's also showing the path outside. It has to show what happens when you transcend the wheel. This is what you're saying. But that person who rejoices only in the self and is satisfied only with the self and is contented only in the self, for that person there is no more duty to accomplish, to perform. Self, Atman. So here it is said, Yastva atmaratire vasyad atmatriptasya manavaha atmanneva cha santushtas tasya karyam na vidyate. Oh, yeah, but that person who rejoices only in the self, even in the Mundaka Upanishad, one of the Upanishads, they say, Atma Rathi, Atma Kriya Kriyavan, Sa Brahmavittama. That person who disports in the self, whose enjoyment is in the self, that person is Kriyavan. He does spiritual work for the good of others, and that person is one of the best knowers of Brahman. You are the self. Your joy, your enjoyment, your life, your everything should be in that self alone. You have somehow strayed away from the self and have become the non-self. That is the state of ignorance. That is the state of the world's wheel that has been set in motion to kind of take some corrective measures for those who want to remain absorbed in the self. The person who has attained this state of realization, this is the state of realization, that person is out of the wheel. Why? Because the Atman, the self, transcends everything, transcends creation. What's creation? Everything that is seen or unseen, including heavens, are all within creation. All the heavens, the highest heavens, it's all within creation, according to Vedanta. This person transcends the entire gamut of creation, the entire gamut of the world's wheel. How? By realizing the self. And once you realize the self, the Atman, what happens? Oh, that person, a person who rejoices only in the self, not in the senses, not even in the mind, not even in the intellect, nothing. All these are found to be kind of a lower order of existence. So, Sri Ramakrishna once went to see a great sage. He was called Trilinga Swami. He was living in Benares. And he was so oblivious of everything around. He used to lie down on the burning sands of the river, Ganga. He was oblivious to it. When Sri Ramakrishna goes to meet him, he had taken the vow of silence, so he was quiet. So Sri Ramakrishna he himself cooked porridge, payasam, and fed that Trilinga Swami. So Sri Ramakrishna asked him, reality, tell me about a reality. Is it one or two? Is it Advaita or Dvaita? So Trilinga Swami raised one finger. It is one. Reality is one. So when the moment you understand the reality is one, yes. So do you need to acquire anything? Do you need to achieve anything? Do you need to please anyone? Are you an object of other people's enjoyment or exploitation? No. So does that person sit down like a kind of a, with a stupid look on his face and then a stupid look in the eyes and like a half dead person, moribund? No. That person is swimming in bliss. The bliss is so much, saying just a particle of this bliss of the Atman animates the whole world. Can you imagine? Just a particle of this bliss, the correct word is enlivens all creatures. Just a particle, and that guy has got a whole lot of thing. So does that person need to do anything? Oh God. Doesn't need to do anything. So even on the lower levels of samadhi, the bliss is so intense, it kind of comes and suffuses every cell in your body, as it were. And you, as it were, floating on this ocean of bliss. If lower samadhis can give you this, what about this realization of the self? One time, Sri Ramakrishna was kind of is saying, you know how the Paramahamsas behave, and how Paramahamsas is the highest class of monks are called Paramahamsas. Paramam is supreme, Hamsa is a monk, is symbolically spoken of as a swan that has separated the milk from the water. That person has separated the reality from the apparent unreality. That's why they are called Paramahamsas. How does that? So he was pacing up and down his room with his cloth under his arm, with an inward look, with his face shining and beaming. You could see the person who's looking at him, you're seeing a swimming in bliss. That person, his external behavior, his or her behavior, is that of like a child, 5 years old, Sri Ramakrishna says, is not attached to anything. Like a child, can you give me a toy? No, my mama gave me, I will not give it to you. Then you give a sweet to that boy or the child and saying, do you want this? You give me that toy? Yeah, take it. One moment that person is kind of attached to it, and second moment, take it. That person is not attached to any of the three gunas. That person is not attached to anything in nature. That person is a storehouse of bliss. Not only that, they say that the world is never without such people. If the world is without such people, the world will collapse. Yes, there always will be such people. They, as it were, enliven this world of joy. Yes, we don't see the connections. These are the people who kind of exist in every age, in every, not only every age, yeah, they have always been there. They are like kind of a huge beacon of light in this world of darkness. We are kind of just groping in the dark, trying to find some kind of, reed on the bank or trying to hold some kind of grass to haul ourselves out. These people are tremendous, you can say, uh, at a tremendous levels of realization. They keep the spiritual world alive. And your spirituality becomes energized by them. It's not necessary that they have to be near you. They can be there anywhere else. But their spiritual influence radiates all over the universe. So these are the highest people. They don't need work anymore. They have transcended work. Why? Because they have transcended the body and they transcended the mind and transcended the individuality. What work do you do? Swami Vivekananda says, yeah, this world, the universe is constantly transforming and moving and expanding, whatever. But seen from a different angle, what is it transforming in relationship to? Nothing. It is one solid, or solid, you can't call it solid. It's one infinite. And what is the infinite? Infinite. There cannot be two infinites. So this is what Swami Vivekananda says. A teacher was asking a child, trying to bring out the ideas of gravity. Why does not the earth fall? They're trying to elicit kind of answers. So a child asked the girl, she said, where will it fall? Yeah, where will it fall? This is an infinite space there. Where is falling and rising? So here we are spiraling either upwards or spiraling downwards. Through our identification, our so-called individuality, our so-called identity. We spiral upwards and become one with this, or we spiral downwards and right down when society itself will isolate you. Actually, it's not society that's isolating you. You have, as it were, stepped out of the world's wheel. And the world, the people living and dying every moment. So many things have come and so many things have gone. Things are going to weep and cry for one kind of life here. That guy, okay, gone. It's over. You don't want to be with us? Stay away. So that is how, like, very, suppose there's a marathon, how many people start and how many people end that race? There are stragglers, of course. There are people drop out of that race and then they watch the other guys running out. So similarly, at that end of a very beautiful life, when you have transcended all the other levels, lower levels of existence, when you come down to this self, the Atman, this is what happens. But the person who rejoices only in the Atman and is satisfied only with the Atman and is contented only in the Atman, for that person there is no duty to perform. Now, what happens? You'll see, if you remember that 7 stages of knowledge in which we were discussing, some time ago. At the 5th level itself, all the karmas, all your is called a chitta vimukti. You become free from the bondages of your own mind. And all karmas kind of roll down the mountain, goes down to the valley, And that boulder or stone cannot come up on its own. So what happens is all work and all karmas and everything that's it, roll down away from you, even on the fourth or fifth level of knowledge. And there are 7 levels. So it rolls down forever, never to come again. So that person's life of work is over. Individually, collectively, that person is now identified with everything and everyone. That person becomes the self of the universe. Even the gods cannot prevail against such a person, as Upanishad also says. Even the gods, why? Because he becomes the self, the Atman of the gods also. So who do you prevail against? Nobody. You become one. So Swami Vivekananda says, if you see you have pleasure in one body, so, and then you can have pleasure in another body. If 2 bodies will have greater pleasure. 3 bodies, your pleasure will increase. 4 bodies, the pleasure will increase. You keep on increasing the number of your bodies, you will get higher and higher and greater pleasure. Suppose you multiplied yourself with the whole universe. Everything becomes you. Then what happens? Oh, your pleasure is infinite. You just cannot express it. And these people really cannot express it. You just, as I say, rejoices in the self. The word is, the Sanskrit word is rati and tripti, and is saying santushta. It's like when you're attached to something, attached to the Atman, you get joy out of it. And from that attachment, once it becomes even more consolidated, the joy increases, tripti. And santushta is that kind of the general sense of well-being and happiness. There is no need for such a person. So the question has been put, if the person goes beyond the life, limited life, and beyond the limited body and everything, how come the person can maintain that body? When that person is disporting in the self, is rejoicing in the self, and is happy in the self, that person cannot take care of the body, because that person is not aware of the body. Only in the lower stages you can, like you see, sometimes you see yourself in dream. You see yourself in dream? Yeah, I can. Similarly, the person of realization sees his own life and body as it were like in a kind of hazy, kind of a dream body. So the first 3 levels of that higher stages of knowledge is, as I say, the waking state. The next 2 knowledge is the dream state. The third is the deep sleep. That is, at that level, the deepest level, that person cannot awaken himself or herself to the idea of this is my body, individual body. When that person awakes from that state, as it were, realizes state, that person realizes the whole universe as the body. So what does the person need to work? But this body somehow kind of is maintained because of the prarabdha karma that has been set in motion. What happens there? This has been discussed in many scriptures. The Supreme Lord maintains that kind of body. Why? Because, like I said, these are the beacons of the great lighthouses in this world of darkness and ignorance to help the world. For people who are practicing spiritual disciplines, they will derive indirectly benefit from this person. So that person's body and prana is taken care of by the Supreme Lord Himself. The next one, it speaks about this idea of work. Will that person be conscious of himself or herself as an agent, as a doer, as I do? I'm a subject and this is the object. The 18th verse is, for such a person there is no need at all for action, karma, nor does the person suffer any effect whatsoever from non-performance of karma. That person does not have anything to gain from karma. Well, if it doesn't work, will there be a kind of a demerit, or there will be a kind of a something called he is not performing work, so that person is wrong or bad? No, nothing. He doesn't care for work or even care for non-work. Because for this one, there is no needful connection whatsoever with any object. That person has become the subject. Subject of the universe. He becomes the soul of the universe. He becomes the soul of your soul. Yeah, that's it. He becomes the mind of your mind. He becomes the life of your life. That person, does that person need to work? That's why he say, for such a person there is no need at all for action. And there is no need for non-action also. That person does not work. Oh, so what? That person has gone beyond everything. So that's why, naivatasya krite narto na krite naiha kaschanaha nachasya sarva bhuteshu kaschidartha vyapashrayah. The commentator says vyapashrayanam. So from the highest to the lowest, so you say, there is no kind of, that person does not take the support of anything. Because that person has become the support of everything. Why should he kind of go out and take support of anything? That person is not connected with any object. That person has become the subject. So, tas naiva tasya kritena, for such a person there is no need at all for karma. No karma. Nothing, yeah. You see, what happens is, throughout many lives, bahunam janmanam, through many lives you have come to this point through work. You have worked for many, many, many lifetimes before. And it's like the stream that is now going to merge in the ocean. What happens? Will that stream start shouting and shouting and shouting? Oh no. It will quietly merge in the ocean. So when you become the ocean, what do? Well, I am the ocean. So why do I need to work? Or why do I need not to work also? Nothing, there's no need at all. So this person becomes full. And that's the idea of Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat. This is full, that is full. And this full perfection has come from this perfection. So here we have this idea of a goal that has been described in relative terms for our own understanding. That person dwells in that person's self only, in the Atman. Atmani eva atmanatushta. In the second chapter we said, one of the questions that Arjuna asked, what are the signs of a person of steady wisdom? Then that one of the descriptions is Atmani eva atmanatushta. That person rejoices in that person's self alone. So what's that self? Is it such a small thing? Eh, yeah, because we are supposed to meditate on that Angushta Matra, this size and that size, and this is the self. It's like this. That's for the beginners to fix their attention on that. But the self has got no size. As we have seen some time back, smaller than the smallest and greater than the greatest, anoraniyan mahato mahiya. It encompasses everything. So what will that person do? Well, what does the person? There was once the recorder of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. He kind of goes, and then he sees Sri Ramakrishna sitting down. You see, oh, perhaps you want to do your evening worship or something like that. Oh, no, nothing like that. Imagine telling Sri Ramakrishna, you're supposed to do your evening prayers and worship. Yeah. That other guy, Hazara, hey, what are you just laughing, joking, talking, all this thing, all the while, laughing with all these young men, boys. You do japa like I do. So Sri Ramakrishna takes a rosary, mala in his left hand, and just manages to just turn a few beads, and he gets in such a deep samadhi. It was very difficult to bring his mind down. Holy Mother says, I never saw him morose. Sri Ramakrishna, never. He was always full of joy, always beaming, always full of energy. So these people, they have not got to acquire something or attain something through effort. All that effort has kind of long over. Okay? Like Sri Ramakrishna says, that bird that sits on the mast, when it finds that the ship has left port and has sailed and comes to kind of awareness of its surroundings, and it flies about here and there, east, west, north, south, cannot find any land. It has finished all running about and flying about. It comes and sits down on the mast. There. You surrender all things. You relinquish all things, all your actions to the Lord. And then you attain this state. We stop here for now. There are no questions, is it? But it doesn't matter. Okay. Oh, yeah. So we can start. We've got about 5 minutes. You can ask some questions. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.